So let's do this.
Luann, I've got just the today's discussion, the Chimp Paradox Review Part 2
Hmm.
on the YouTube. It's not there we go. Now I'm getting you. Now I'm getting you. Just the
Yeah,
discussion.
I think there probably what you were experiencing was a delay.
Luann, I've got just the
So yeah, David, you've got okay. You just turned it off. You've got yourself unmuted anyway. So how would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. I'm Dave Flannery. I'm with Affordable Websites for Small Businesses. Um, Happy to come from Rock Falls, Illinois, where it's windy and a little bit cool today. We're going to lose a lot of our leaves. So the color was fantastic this weekend. Um,
Hmm.
but it's going to all blow away here today. We got 20-mile-an-hour winds. So,
Hmm. Yeah, we're in the same boat here in Victoria. I actually heard a hurricane type wind warning for later on today, but this morning's walk it was just pouring. So I think we're sharing a lot of the same stuff. So,
uh, Javita also says hello to everybody.
oh, Javita, I would like to say thank you so much for the lovely Thanksgiving greeting. And you should know that I really only sent your greeting to those of us who are in Canada because the Canadian Thanksgiving is at a different time. So, but thank you so much. But I'm not sure when. Well, Thanksgiving is in November in the U.S.
November
Is
25th.
is it the same in the UK, Vivek?
I think so. I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah. Okay. So we Canadians, I just have to be different.
It pays to be different, Llewellyn.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
All right. So thank you, David. Nathan, you were here before Fred, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Nathan Siegel. I'm coming to you from sunny Bucerias in Mexico, just north of Puerto Vallarta on the coast. And my thing these days, finally figured out a couple of things to do with membership sites. Yes. So I'm promoting a course by my colleague Rich Schnabel out of Australia about neurolinguistic programming. It's level one. And also a course that I just uploaded a few days ago about how to travel and live in Mexico.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, well, no. It's not cold down here. It's warm. It's not hot. I
So,
couldn't resist, Lowell,
right.
and you know me by now.
Yeah. But you at some point we may need to pick your brain because Vivek and I are in the process of creating a course, and we have we've been we've been discovering a whole lot of things as we go, and
Oh,
we have created a new website to house that, et cetera, et cetera. So we may be at some point ready to look at the concept of membership. So
yeah. There's a lot out there. There are two things I'm going to throw your way right now, real quick. One is Kajabi,
yes,
which has already
yeah.
got everything in place apparently. The other one is another one I'm working with down here. It's a site called Guru, which runs on top of Joomla.
Mm,
And so that's a totally different animal, but it's kind of interesting actually.
right.
And it is a membership site.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Fred, how would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Fred Jones, creator of Our Future Leaders. I work with setting up courses and clubs of young people where they can improve their communication and leadership skills so they can become the leaders that our world needs in this rapidly changing world. I've been working on some videos for introducing roles for each meeting when they have meeting. They
Mm,
have different roles. For example, if you're the meeting leader or you're the timer,
Mhm.
which leads into next week's, to a certain extent, how you run meetings, which is another topic
Mhm.
at another time. I'm currently on Vancouver Island in near Victoria in Colwood at the moment until the end of the month when I move back to the boat.
Mm. Right on. So, living on a boat in the wintertime is not for sissies. I know that. So, there are all kinds of things that you have to do in order to stay safe, etc., etc. So, yeah. So, welcome here, Fred. And I think I said enough about myself. I'm in Victoria, BC. And we are going to move on to part 2 of Vivek's review. Now, I know that last time, Vivek, you had a self intro at the beginning of that. I don't know if that you have that this time or not.
It
So,
still is. It still is. That
okay.
there also is a brief summary of what
Oh,
we
good,
covered last
good,
week. So
good.
yeah.
So I don't need to, I had written a few things, but if you've done that, let's just move right into it then.
Yeah. So I need to share my screen
Mhm.
and oh,
It's showing up just fine in OBS, Vivek.
okay, but I'm not seeing what's going on. I'm not because I have multiple screens here and so on. I don't know. I can't see any of you. I can hear you.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Okay. I'll start again.
yeah.
There it goes again. I can't see. Okay.
You can't see us in Zoom? Is that your problem?
No, yeah, that was the problem. I sorted it out somehow, but these are all technical glitches. So
Yeah.
just as you had some, this is probably my share of technical glitches for today. I hope so.
Well,
Anyway,
and we might want to explain to anybody who might be watching this later on. I think everybody here knows this, but just by way of explanation, whenever any kind of software that you're using, whenever there's an update, you never know what the update has done to your settings that you had been used to using, and that you think might be automatic, etc. It just never fails. And I mean, we have automatic settings to save us time and make things more efficient, but sometimes that backfires.
at the nick of the moment, it just goes haywire and
I
it
have to
tests
admit,
your patience and composure, I guess. So
Mhm.
here again, okay. Um, Namaste. My name is Vivekanand. People call me Vivek. I believe in living a simple life. I believe in thinking differently. I am proud to share my belief with Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, who said simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication. I aim to bring time-tested wisdom and happiness together into your business and life by unifying, simplifying, amplifying simple technology and tools. I achieve this by developing software solutions as necessary. Today's agenda is I shall show you a brief intro, then we shall have a brief discussion, and then I shall go into the main topic for today. In other words, this presentation is broken into multiple chunks, as was the part one, so that the panel members can say a few words before we move on to the next chunk. Well, this also means that I expect the panel members to pay attention and not fall asleep or do something else. Because I'll ask you questions. Only joking.
Right.
Let me begin. Now, before I proceed further, let me answer the question, why am I doing this? As you may already know, unify, simplify, amplify life is my tagline. So by studying and reviewing work by inspirational people, I hope to inspire you all, especially when we are in a lockdown situation due to COVID. It makes sense to understand ourselves so that we can adapt to the new realities in the world. Otherwise, we run the risk of losing control to our inner chimps. Today, I am presenting the second and concluding part of my review of the book, The Chimp Paradox by Professor Dr. Steve Peters. For the sake of completeness, let me repeat what I had mentioned in part one. It is also possible that you missed the part one. I highly recommend that you watch it after this episode of Success Circle. But here is a brief summary of what was covered in part one. Let us first get to know a bit more about this professor. From his biography, Professor Steve Peters is a consultant psychiatrist and has worked in the clinical field of psychiatry for over 20 years. He specializes in optimizing the functioning of the mind and also holds degrees in mathematics and medicine. Professor Peters is undergraduate dean at Sheffield University Medical School. He is also the psychology consultant for Liverpool Football Club and for the England football team. In this book, Professor Steve shares his phenomenally successful mind management program that helped Olympic gold medalists and senior managers alike to conquer their fears and operate with greater control, focus, and confidence. This is one of the mind maps I covered in part one last week. The photo in the center is Dr. Professor Steve Peters giving a TEDx talk about the same subject. This is another mind map I covered in that episode. This covers concepts and ideas covered in the book in a chapter called The Divided Planet. I did go through this mind map branch by branch in that episode. I talked about the different agendas that the chimp and you have. I talked about the jungle center and humanity center, and also the different personalities that the chimp and you present. Here is the mind map of a three-step process explained by Professor in his book. I talked about the three steps in detail after explaining why it is important to follow these three steps. As I mentioned, this chimp is a representation of the most important and strongest part of your brain. And once again, I highly recommend you watching the part 1. I covered 3 chapters from the book in that episode. Lowland's website already has a link to part 1, and I recommend you go and watch the episode in full afterwards. During the part 1 discussion, someone mentioned subconscious mind. In today's part 2, we would hopefully know more about this.
Hmm.
Coming to today's topic, we start from chapter 4. Our brain is a divided planet. The guiding moon is our brain's computer. In the universe, the moons act as stabilizers to the planets that they are orbiting. The guiding moon, therefore, stabilizes the divided planet. This means that if we can get the computer in our mind to work well, it will give our mind stability and make managing our chimp much easier. Our computer has 2 functions. It can act automatically for us using programmed thoughts and behaviors. Why study this computer? Well, not necessarily because I am a software developer, but because it's a reference source for information, beliefs, and values. When we are born, the computer is like an empty hard drive. It is merely a storage for behaviors and beliefs that the human or chimp will input into it. Potentially, the computer is more powerful than the chimp and the human because it is the reference source that both of them look to for help and guidance. Often, the human or chimp may not even be aware that they have put these conscious or unconscious thoughts or behaviors into the computer. How successful it is in functioning depends on how helpful and truthful the inputs were. That is the section of mind map which I hope answers why we should study the part of the brain that is considered to be the computer within our brain. Now, let me stop the screen share and yeah, we'll have a panel discussion. What do the panel think?
Well, oh, guess I better unmute myself. Well, for me, what comes out of that is recognizing or understanding that our surroundings, that we're born, if our if the computer part of our brain is kind of empty when we're born, that means that our environment is what goes on in the environment, what happens to us, our experiences and our environment are what that computer brain takes up. So, and that explains why so many of us have so many different beliefs and values. Is that it depends on what the influences were as we were as our brain was developing. Yeah, so makes us realize that how important the concept of good parenting is for sure. And I don't know about any of the rest of you, but I know that when I was doing my parenting, did I have a rule book or any guidance? No. I think Dr. Spock was the the the, the Bible that we all brought our kids up on. So anyway, what about anybody else? I notice everybody's smiling, so I guess you all know who Dr. Spock was. Any other comments from others?
Well, your environment has a lot to do with it. Uh, your parents have a huge influence on you, and where you go to school and all that. That's that's how you fill the hard drive up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even the society around you, because I mean, today it seems to be more obvious than ever because of this COVID. I mean, each country seems to react to things in a different way. So even the country we grow up in feeds into that part of our brain as well. Yeah. And our religious backgrounds and so forth. There's so much that must influence it. Yeah. Hmm. Anybody else? Any observations? No?
Yeah, I have one comment, if I may. Oh, I saw Alana put up her hand, but I think I beat you, Alana, this time. So we also inherit a lot. There's trauma research been done that trauma that happened to your grandparents can even affect you. So
Yeah.
we do inherit a lot of that. So it's not a completely empty disk drive.
Mm.
So that's one comment that
Mm.
came to mind.
Mm. So do you mean inherit as in genetically?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
it's been shown and been proven that some things that happen to our parents or grandparents, we react to, and it's been shown. So
Mhm.
I won't go into detail, but
Mhm.
that is apparently
Yeah,
researched and proven fact.
Mm.
there was some research, I think it was done on mice or something like that, but they discovered that experience of one particular generation of mice gets passed on to the future generations up to 7 generations, they said.
Yeah.
7.
It was done with birds as well
Yeah.
in
So
Washington State.
Mm.
There was where something that happened to the parents of the birds, and then the baby birds reacted to something that they had never seen, but they knew what had happened to their parents.
Mm.
So it was inherited.
So just because it's a topic that's really important to me, I really need to raise this. So First Nations people who suffered the residential school experience, they refer to the seventh generation. They refer to that often in terms of well, the process of reconciliation. So yes, I think our First Nations brothers and sisters here and in the U.S. They are they do um, even the children of the children. So yeah, I recognize that. But I had to say that because it's important to me to acknowledge that happened. Yeah. So thank you
Alana,
for that, Fred. What about you, Alana?
I was just going to say that I don't think that we come into this world with a blank slate, that I think some things are ingrained, like handedness, and some people have more spatial ability than others. Some people are gearheads, and some people have the gift of writing, and like my brothers are all gearheads, so that's kind of the way I grew up, and I kind of picked up a little bit of that. So that's partly
you know what?
environment, but it's also, I think, ingrained in them.
You know what, Alana? That part is being covered in the
Oh, sorry.
slides.
Sorry, I did, sorry.
No. It's an indication that what is being covered is truth, well known, and nothing out of the. I mean, yeah. So
Well, I also want to dispel the sexist myth that women can't do some of these things, and that they're specifically geared toward men and women. Because, like I said, my brothers were all gearheads, and I was learning how to work on a car when I was a teenager.
Okay.
Anyway,
David?
moving on. Sorry.
David.
First off, Javita's saying that religion can influence positively or negatively. And I was going to throw in that I did see a study on crows out in Seattle where they wore the same study, Fred. They wore masks, and the chicks that had never seen the mask when they grew up reacted the same way their parents did.
Interesting. Wow. Alana, when you talked about the handedness, I'm right-handed, and my walking friend is left-handed, and we have had more fun sort of exploring and noticing the differences between right-handed people and left-handed people. So when and she has a hard time figuring out what, if I say turn left here, she will invariably turn right. So then I have to say, no, the other left or the other right.
I actually enjoy playing with people to do with that. One of my things is turn left, right here.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that's just me taking the piss out of people
Yeah.
because I can.
Yeah.
Well, one thing you may or may not know, I'm not politically correct, and I don't follow the herd very well.
We figured that out.
And I'm also
before,
left-handed,
Nathan.
by the way. I'm also left-handed. Quick side note, I was in art school a number of years ago, and one day when I was in class, I forget how many students we had, 16 or 18 of us, something like that. I walked around the classroom one day to find out how many of us were left-handed. So if it was, I think it was 16 of us there, 14 of us were left-handed, which I thought was really cool. And of course, for those of us who are left-handed are in our right minds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
all the standard
and the
jokes
other
that go with
thing,
being left-handed.
yeah. Well, the other thing is my husband is left-handed. On only one of my sons was left-handed, and everybody else in the family is right-handed. So
in my family, my mother was left-handed. I'm left-handed. My brother's left-handed.
wow. So
Yeah.
I guess it's passed on, but not sure exactly what the combination is. So yeah.
That I can't help you with. No idea.
But it certainly is a sort of a different thing, though.
Well, it really sucks when you're in school and you've got those bloody desks with the right hand setup.
Yeah.
Man, I hated that.
But the hard disk that professor refers to here is actually a part of the brain, not I mean, most of the brain inherits things from the parents and so on, but this part he refers to is, he calls it empty hard disk. But yeah, let's see.
Okay.
Let's see what
let's carry on.
Yes. So is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Now, here is a provocative question. Are the computers in men and women the same. I didn't raise this question before the break because if I did, the discussion will go on forever. So,
Hey, Vivek, you got to tread lightly here.
uh, so, are the computers in men and women the same? The short answer is yes. They function in very similar way, but there are some differences. The typical female computer can work with language at a higher level than the typical male computer. Female brains have many more areas than male brains called association centers for working with language. In contrast, male brain has an area for dealing with mathematics and map reading that is around 4 times the size of the area that does this in female brain. Whether it works better is another matter. There is a common joke here. When in an unknown city, men will not ask for directions because they lack language skills. But women are no better because they can't read a map. Let's consider how fast is this computer. Well, will it depend on the CPU speed, RAM size, and so on? Well, not really. Dr. Steve says, we can think of the computer as running at a speed around 4 times that of the chimp and 20 times that of the human. Therefore, if the computer is operating well, it can execute commands at an amazing speed with complete accuracy and before the chimp or human has a chance to finish thinking. Let's look at what is in the computer and what do the chimp and human put into it. The chimp and the human both input into the computer and therefore program it. The chimp typically puts mostly gremlins, but sometimes autopilots into the computer. The human typically puts autopilots most of the time, but sometimes puts gremlins as well. Once the computer has programs to run with, it will take over and allow the chimp and human to take a break from thinking and interpreting. The computer is programmed to think and act for us, but only with information that we have told it to use. These stored beliefs and behaviors are therefore learned by the human and chimp and put into the computer. Both the human and the chimp are capable of interrupting the computer and execute new instructions. The computer does most of the work in taking us through our day. How well it gets us through the day will depend on what has been put into it. We can, of course, add and remove things from the computer if we stop and make time to maintain it. The problem is that most of us do not do this. That is the automatic functioning part of our brains. Now, again, this is another break here. What do you think of the computer analogy? We do many of our daily tasks automatically, almost robotically, without thinking. So what do you think of that?
Go ahead, Alana. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alana.
So I'm actually a little confused here because you know, I understand the whole male female thing, but I can't help but wonder if it's kind of a myth because doesn't it have to do with right brain and left brain? Yeah, I'm thinking it has more to do with right brain and left brain than it has to do with being male or female.
But
and I'm talking about like you know how women have better language skills than men. But I have to take issue with your point that women can't read maps because I'm excellent at reading a map. Oh, but anyway,
I didn't say that. Don't blame me.
Aside from that, no, I'm just wondering.
I'm not saying that.
I'm just wondering if it has more to do with left brain and right brain as opposed to being male or female. I'm just curious.
As such, the professor is a medical doctor, so he has studied the brain as such as a doctor, medical doctor. So I don't know, and all the expressions, the conclusions, whatever, are from his book, not from me. So.
Alana, I might add something to what you said. Of course, we're going to, there is a danger that we say that all men are like this and all women are like this. There is other research out there that says that all human beings have both a feminine and a masculine side, and that we're able to enact both of those things. So there are other books and there is other research out there that says, yeah, I mean that's our old language around women. All women do this and all men do that. But I've been interested in. I'll throw this out, and we won't go any further with it. But just in case somebody finds this interesting, I've stumbled on a group of women who are studying science, the feminism, or the in science, and they've gone back and questioned all kinds of things in science that were formulated and thought of from that old paradigm of this is what men do and this is what women do. So there's all kinds of other stuff out there that supports not swallowing it all and realizing that there are other ways to look at it. Okay, enough said. We don't want to get into into the weeds here. Fred.
I just want to clarify, when you're talking about the chimp and the human, you're talking about different parts of the brain. You know, this is what we're referring to, not anything else, but we're referring to the chimp being that part of the brain which does things automatically. So that we got to be careful that we understand that's his terminology, or Dr. Peter's terminology, for the different parts of the brain which we've all, well, most of us have heard of. In many cases become well known that there's more than one part of the brain than the other. When it comes to women and men, I mean, there's been some very interesting articles and movies about things would not have happened for coding in Second World War, and also NASA in the space program, if it hadn't been for some of the technological breakthroughs that women have done. So, you know, and that was sort of never spoken about until recently. Those have come to the fore. People saying, did you know who really did some of this wonderful breakthrough work? It was this group of women. I mean, there was a fantastic movie and so on about that. So I won't go into it, but
Yeah.
So from that point of view, but I think I just come back to, we're talking about different parts of the brain when we speak about the chimp and the human.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's really um, it's it's really interesting to understand though that there's a different part of your brain that looks at mathematics and another one that looks at language and all of those things. So yeah. So David, go ahead.
Yeah, Javita's also saying in energy terminology, also known as yin and yang energy.
The masculine feminine part of your brain. Yeah. Yeah. So we all have to be so careful about the language or the terminologies that we use. Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard Sadhguru joke about if he makes a joke about God and God is in his joke, if he refers to God as male, then all the women will start. So he was saying, are we all totally screwed up? Not really, but we need some perspective. Yes.
Yeah. A lot of this is based on old beliefs and old terminologies and old judgments. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we proceed with the next bunch? Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, let me get back to the mind map. It's time for some definitions to gain clarity. I briefly mentioned autopilot and gremlins. The autopilot is a constructive or helpful belief or behavior. The gremlin is an unhelpful or destructive belief or behavior that is removable. The goblin is an unhelpful or destructive belief or behavior that is firmly fixed and extremely difficult to remove. The stone of life contains the values and beliefs by which you live your life. I mean, these are all his terminologies and definitions that he talks about in his book. So let's look at them in detail, one by one. Let me zoom in further. Autopilots are all the positive, constructive beliefs, behaviors, and automatic functioning that help us to be successful and happy in life. They can be placed into the computer at any age. So autopilots could include, for example, riding a bike, staying calm when something goes wrong, focusing on solutions rather than problems, tying a shoelace, being organized and disciplined as a routine, having a positive self-image. We definitely need more of these autopilots because when we are under stress, these autopilots can take us to safety in a safe, sound, and good way. They are especially useful when you have very little time to think and have to act very quickly. And as was mentioned in part 1, we want the human to control us most of the time. Here is a very good autopilot to put into every child's mind. You are worthy just as you are. It is who you are that is being loved and respected, and you don't have to achieve anything in order to be worthy. The professor later on gives the most common example of a goblin, and he says, this one affects most people in the Western world. I shall soon explain that further. This is the autopilot branch of the mind map. Gremlin is an unhelpful or destructive belief or behavior. But the good news is they can be removed with a bit of effort. One example of the two very common gremlins that most people have in their computers and experience from time to time, the twins of unrealistic expectation and unhelpful expectation. Checking to see if you are being realistic and reasonable about any expectation you have is always well worth doing. If your expectations are unrealistic or unhelpful, then it is almost guaranteed to lead to very strong negative emotions within you. Typically, emotions such as frustration, anger, or disappointment rush in. As I said before, the gremlins are soft wired into our brains and they can be removed with some effort. That is the gremlins branch of the mind map. A goblin is usually put into the computer when we are very young. During the very early part of our childhood, our computer tends to hardwire any information put into it. So the goblins are more or less hardwired into the computer and are very difficult to remove. So we need to learn to contain them. As a rule, goblins occur before the age of about 8, and gremlins usually occur after the age of 8. Goblins and gremlins are more or less the opposite of autopilots. They are unhelpful and destructive behaviors, beliefs, or automatic programs that are stored in the computer. The professor gives an example of a goblin, which I'll cover next, but I'm taking a short break here and would like the panel members to discuss what I have covered so far.
Habits.
So, Vivek, can I just ask, you said that the gremlins are hardwired and the goblins are softwired. Can I confirm that's what you're saying? Did you say
No,
that?
other way around.
Was it the other way around? Okay, so the gremlins are hardwired and the goblins,
goblins are hardwired.
Goblins are hardwired and gremlins are softwired. And you're saying that the gremlins, which one occurs before the age of 8?
The goblin, which gets hardwired.
The goblin. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah. Javita says we need to talk in the language or terminology that's needed at different times.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Yeah. as a soccer coach, I used to, some of the reading I did, they used to say that when you learn to kick a ball, in order to change your way of doing it, you have to practice it 1,000 times in order to not think about it anymore.
Mm.
That was how you would, and I don't know if that's a gremlin or a goblin.
No, you're saying kick the ball in a certain way to achieve certain results. So you are actually talking about autopilot,
Oh, okay.
because both gremlin and goblin give you a negative behavior, negative result, which you don't really want.
Well, when you don't
That
kick the
is.
ball right, that's the results you don't want. You know? Anyway.
But I love this discussion though around habits.
Mm.
Those are if we think of habits as being autopilot, and we can change them or remove them or whatever. Um, I'm sort of thinking that gremlins can influence what habits we have. Well, gremlins and goblins both can influence the habits we have. Can they not?
In a way, he seems to say that some of the habits themselves are actually gremlins.
Oh,
If they result in some outcome which is
if the
negative.
outcome is negative. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a difference between positive habits and negative and not
Positive habits, he
Mhm.
says, they are all autopilots.
Mhm.
You put in an autopilot, which is when this happens, you do this, this, and this.
Mhm.
And this happens automatically without you even thinking. That is,
Mhm.
and the outcome is a positive one. In that case, this is an autopilot. It's a thing that you want to happen. This is you want that the result to happen when this happens. So you put these things in place so that automatically, without you thinking, all these things happen.
Mhm. But
So
I
that's.
liked that section where he talked about unrealistic expectations, and I see that Javita is saying, um, but the author must be aware of the power of the conscious mind. Yeah.
Yeah, she did mention subconscious mind and so on. That is the um, in a way she's referring to this computer part
Mhm.
that the professor is talking about.
Mm.
You will not become aware of this computer part on its own, but it happens. So it happens subconsciously. You are not really aware of,
Yeah.
but you have played an active role in the past in putting these autopilots or gremlins or all of that. So
So when I don't want to foresee what the latter part here, but there is also research and discussion by many traditions that says that you can access your subconscious mind through certain kinds of techniques, meditation being one of them, and so forth. So I guess if I were trying to place this and understand, so if we were, you almost need to go to the subconscious to determine what the gremlins and the goblins are,
yeah.
because they're kind of they're there, but we're not conscious of them. We might be conscious of certain negative circumstances, but do we know where those negative circumstances come from unless we can access the subconscious mind? Interesting.
Okay, so shall we proceed further? Yeah.
Javita has one more comment. Destructive thoughts can be changed. Remember Louise Hayes. She's had done some astonishing work on self-love and power thoughts.
Mhm. Yes, Louise Hay is has been very influential in the last number of years.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, here the professor gives an example of a goblin
Oh.
which gets hardwired into the brain, and yeah, we must be careful what we do here in the sense, yeah. Okay, he says the fridge door syndrome depicts the most common example of a goblin, and this one affects most people in the Western world. Those are his words, not mine. Professor tells a short story. It is the first day of school and the young child is full of emotions. The teacher says to the child, "Let's paint a picture for your parents." After painting the picture and after the school is over, the child runs home to show it to the parent. As the child runs up to the parent says, "What is it that you got?" The child hands over the painting. The parent responds, "This picture is fantastic. You are very clever. I'm so proud of you. I want the world to know just how good you are." And then puts the picture on the fridge door for all the world to see just how clever the child is. What has happened is that the child now has a great big goblin to share life with. Let's look at the same scenario with a different approach. The child returns from the school with the painting and runs to the parent. The parent responds with, "Hang on," and moves the painting to one side and hugs the child. That comes first. Then the parent says, "I'm so proud of you and you are clever. And I want the world to know just how proud I am of you." Now, what is it that you got? The parent and child now have a discussion about the painting, and the parent compliments the painting and the child and asks the child if the child would like it to be put on the fridge door because it is pretty. In the first scenario, what the parent did was to tell the child that it was clever and the parent was proud of it because of what the child had achieved. In other words, implying that the child's worth is dependent on the painting. The message to the second child was that you are worthy just as you are. It is who you are that is being loved and respected, and you don't have to achieve anything in order to get this. The parent then goes on to say that achieving things is good, but this shouldn't be mixed up with your own self-worth.
Mm.
This syndrome is extremely common and the majority of the population seems to be affected by it. However, we can manage it and work around it, not letting it control us.
Mm.
Part of the problem is that the chimp helps the goblin. That is the section of mind map covering the goblin. Many people suffer emotionally because they are constantly worried about what others think of them and they would love to just live their lives and not be concerned. But the chimp and goblin won't let them. The stone of life is your ultimate reference point. It is where your truths of life, values, and life force are all inscribed. The chimp and the human gauge everything by the stone. The truths of life are how we believe the world works, and we can prove they are true by examples and experience. It is very helpful for us to work out our values, as these values will be the guide for the human and the chimp to work too. The values will act as a constant reminder of where our heart and soul lie, and will settle down both the human and chimp in times of distress. To discover the life force on our stone of life, we need to imagine that we are 100 years of old and on our deathbed and 1 minute left to live. Our great great grandchild asks, "Before you die, tell me what I should do with my life." Answering this question will identify what is important to us. It is what life is all about to us. It is our life force. That is the huge section of mind map explaining autopilot, gremlins, goblins, and the stone of life. The professor talks about how all these affect our decision making and gives us pointers about how we can have our human side control our lives. I have a few more slides about that. At this point, some of you may be thinking, all that is fine, but why should I care? These would be the takeaways from today's episode. When any event happens, the message first goes to the chimp part in our brain. The chimp then looks into the computer to check with previous memories, beliefs, and experiences. Remember, the chimp is mainly looking to see if there is any danger. The main agenda of the chimp is survival. When the human part of the brain gets a chance, it also looks into the computer to check with previous memories, beliefs, and experiences. The human has purpose in life as its agenda. Let's look at an example the professor gives in the book. Adam works for a very tough boss who calls him in only to criticize and warn him that his job is not secure. Human in Adam is unsettled by the behavior of the boss and inputs into the computer that when you see this boss, expect to have criticism and be prepared for this emotionally. The chimp in Adam quite reasonably gets very disturbed by meeting the boss, and the chimp might put into the computer the belief that whenever you meet someone who is the boss, expect to be very disturbed and receive bad news. It might also put a gremlin that all bosses are going to be critical and make you feel bad. However, let's assume Adam now moves jobs and has a new boss. The new boss does not work like the old one and is very understanding and likes to compliment and support his staff. Adam receives a call to say that the new boss would like to meet him. The chimp and human have different interpretations at this stage, but the chimp is much faster than the human, and so Adam enters the room with fear and unlikely to have a good conversation with the boss because he is too anxious and already believes he knows the outcome. The alternative outcome is that Adam's human looks to the autopilot and then reassures the chimp and says, I'll give this new boss a chance, as he may not be like the old one. This is one way through experience by which gremlins and autopilots come into being. Either the chimp or human has put them into the computer for future reference and use. Now, again, I'll stop the screen share and time for some discussion.
I have to leave in the next minute or so. In
Yes,
fact, I
and
should
Alana
right
had
now.
to leave as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once
Not
again,
far
it's,
behind either.
there's
Sorry.
a lot of relevance to how our brains affect our everyday life. So I mean,
Yep.
there's no doubt about that.
Mhm.
But with that, I have to leave. So if you continue, I'll try and check the video.
Mhm.
Okay. Bye
Thanks
for
for
now.
coming, Fred. Yeah.
Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Fred.
Okay, bye.
And I'm in the same boat. I'm going to have to leave here too. I've got phone calls that have come in and I need to take care of. So
Okay. Yes, we are 10 minutes way over.
I'm
We-
sorry. Normally I can stay longer, but
No.
today is a busy day. So
life and business happen. So thanks for coming, David.
everybody have a great week.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just need to go back to where we were.
Mhm.
So I guess what he's saying is that we can choose what how we think about something. We can try to step back and not make assumptions about things and file that away. Those assumptions can sometimes be wrong and we end up with gremlins. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay, shall I continue?
Mhm.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Automatic function relies on stored beliefs and behaviors. In order for human and the chimp to go to sleep and let the computer take over, we have to program it properly. If it doesn't run smoothly or it doesn't know what to do, then human and the chimp stay awake and interfere. Gremlins must be replaced with autopilots.
Mhm.
The professor says one of the biggest gremlin is the should gremlin. Here are some examples of how the should gremlin be replaced with an autopilot. The word could usually evokes feelings of possibility, hope, an option, a choice, empowerment, and potential for change. Clearly, there are some occasions when the words must and should would be appropriate. So, the professor is not suggesting that we remove them from the English language. Here is another example where a potential spouse is expecting to meet his or her potential in-laws and how the gremlins can be replaced with autopilots. This diagram shows that it is the chimp's perception of whether there is danger or not which starts off the process. Which part of the brain deals with the situation depends on two main factors: whether the chimp senses danger or threat, whether the human is familiar with the situation or not. In extreme danger, the chimp will take over. When there is a threat, the chimp will first look into the computer to see what is stored there. If the computer does not reassure the chimp, then the chimp will take over. If the chimp is reassured, then either the human or computer will act. In circumstances where the chimp does not see any threat, then it will hand over to either the human or the computer. That is the full mind map that we covered today. I know it is a complex one. As this episode is recorded, you will be able to rewind and watch it again later on.
Yes.
But I have come to the end of the presentation today. And I have a couple more links that I will share with you, Logalan. You can put them on your website.
Right on. Well, I think you're. I mean, you're right. This is really complex material. And I believe that his main takeaway, the main takeaway, is that we have, if we understand the way the brain works, we have the capability of creating habits that that are going to bring about positive outcomes. Yeah, it's all about the way we think.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually one of the traditional cultural beliefs in the Indian way of thinking. It's that all of that is actually you can refer to as karma. It's your karma. It's your doing. It's
Yes. Yeah. Well, and so that's one way. And in my coaching world, and in some of the materials that I've read, there was a terminology that said no shoulding allowed. So I mean, that fits in with that as well. So I could do something, or I would like to do something. I choose to do something. Those are all different ways, and that is reframing. Instead of I should, I must, or I'm expected. It's I choose. This is what I choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what an interesting book. And my walking friend and I had a discussion about this morning, and she said it would be really interesting to ask everybody if they can think of a time when when they allowed their chimp to sort of determine or the gremlin, whichever. Like, can you think of a time in your life when that happened? And
the professor does say that the human part in both men and women are essentially same. It's the chimp which differs. I mean, I think I covered that in the part 1. So yeah.
But it's, I mean, I guess again, from the conversation that I had with my walking friend while we were walking this morning, it would be really interesting to take some of these concepts and see how they apply to what's going
Mhm.
on right now in our world around us right now, because as my friend said, there are all these fears that people are acquiring right now, and how are they
Mm,
reacting to all of those fears?
mm,
um, and it seems like the fears are being piled one on top of the other in
yeah.
this whole thing. So how does one make use of this information
Mm,
to figure out how to deal with what's around us right now?
yeah.
Because usually, maybe not usually, but I mean, it's not often that we have one fear on piling in on top of the other. I might die,
Mm,
I might catch this, I might die.
mm,
What am I going to do? I've lost my job.
mm,
How am I going to survive? I mean, it goes
mm,
on and on.
yeah.
So, it's one on top of the other. And so how does one deal with that? I know what I've done to work with that, and I'm not sure I've got it perfect as yet. But when all this started, I had to give it a lot of thought. What what
Mm,
what do I choose here, and how do I proceed from here? So so many people are needing to go back and do that rather than just reacting. That's the other thing. When something happens, yeah,
mm,
the fear is there and we can react, but if we choose to reframe it in such a way that we don't have to react, that we can choose, then
yeah.
it makes it easier to cope with. Yeah.
Mm,
So
okay.
so Javita is saying, I still don't understand how karma works.
Yeah. That is a you, we will never know, Jivita. I mean, both you and myself are you are still in India. I am of Indian origin. I would say we will probably never know, understand the karma concept fully.
Mm,
Um, but it has been misinterpreted, and shortcuts have been taken, or whatever else you want to call it, in most of the Western world. Yeah, karma has suddenly become a English word. It's not, but and been given its own meaning, which
mm.
in some ways does explain what karma is, but not fully. And yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the Western, my my first exposure to that term and that concept was kind of more like karma is what you get
Mm.
according to what you put into
Yeah, it is what you get, but
it. So, but
um,
I have heard Sadhguru's comments as well, and he certainly has a much wider
mm,
interpretation of that
yeah.
I'm not sure I fully understand. I'm not sure I would be able to define.
Uh, in Sadhguru's own words, I would say the fact that you say that you haven't really understood it is a good thing.
Mhm.
If you think that you have understood it, you will
Mm.
conclude something. This is this, and
Yeah.
no, that's conclusion is death.
So then Javita says, sorry, Vivek, but the book is making simple concepts
Mm,
complicated. And then she says, people with power try to prove everything they do, even if it's totally wrong and unethical. Yes, power, you're right, Javita. Power does funny things to people.
mm,
So I think
Yeah. Okay.
I had better stop oh my goodness, we are way over this morning.
Yeah.
So basically, just by way of finishing off, I want to thank you for you put a lot of work into those two presentations, and I thank you a great deal
You're
for
welcome.
sharing that with us, Vivek. And it certainly has made me start to question a whole lot of things, and I'm sure that that was the intention. So, and I want to thank the others who have had to leave because they have other commitments. I understand that life and work happen. And I just want to remind everyone that it's important to do what you love with passion, and to let you know that next week Fred is going to do a presentation. Um, he will do a review of a book called Meetings Suck. So with that, I will start the outro.